Okay, first of all, I know the history behind the WNBA. I know that both of those cities have had teams before and they got us where we're at, so I'm thankful for that.
The Fever's latest victory should have been all about basketball, but instead, chaos exploded courtside when Sophie Cunningham found herself in the middle of a shocking scene. Imagine this: a heated clash, tempers flaring, and suddenly, PAULA BLART Mall COP storms into Sophie's space, sparking an uproar. What followed was even more outrageous, an army of sick fans going after Sophie, turning the spotlight from the win to a firestorm of drama. So, what really went down that night? Let's reveal the details. Confrontation that sparked a storm. The roar of the crowd should have marked nothing but celebration. The Fever had just secured their place in the semifinals, a feat many had written off as impossible. Players were pumped, fans were on their feet, and the energy inside the arena felt electric. Yet what should have been a night remembered for pure basketball glory quickly twisted into something stranger, louder, and far more controversial. And at the center of it all was Sophie Cunningham, who, ironically, wasn't even in full play condition. The drama started when Odyssey Sims went down hard. It wasn't your average stumble, it was the kind of fall that made the audience gasp and players rush in to help. Teammates swarmed the court to check on her, their faces etched with concern. But not everyone moved past that half-court line. Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham, still limited by a bulky leg contraption, remained at mid-court. There was no hesitation, no lack of compassion. It was simply a matter of boundaries and, in Sophie's case, physical limitation. Still, that moment somehow became the spark for a bizarre encounter that no one saw coming. Out of nowhere, a figure emerged, an overly eager security guard who seemed to be taking their role just a little too seriously. Fans online quickly dubbed the moment a PAULA BLART Mall COP performance, and for good reason. Instead of blending into the background like most security staff do, this guard decided to march directly into Sophie Cunningham's space. To anyone watching, the move looked unnecessary, even confrontational. Sophie was standing calmly in her ball cap, legs strapped up in a brace, clearly not in a position to leap onto the court. Yet the guard closed in, as if Sophie were about to spark a riot. The absurdity didn't go unnoticed. Why target Sophie of all people? Why approach a player who was visibly restrained, unable to rush forward even if she wanted to? The camera caught every second, from the guard's heavy stride to the silent tension that followed as they squared up to Sophie. And through it all, Sophie didn't flinch. She stood her ground, refusing to back down, her expression calm but unyielding. It was a silent battle of presence, and though she said nothing, her composure spoke volumes. This strange face-off immediately ignited conversations across social media. Clips spread fast, fans rewound footage, and theories popped up everywhere. Some speculated the guard wanted attention, using Sophie's popularity as a platform to steal the spotlight. Others insisted it was intimidation, a show of power aimed at one of the league's most recognizable names. But whatever the reason, one thing was clear. Sophie had become the unintended center of an off-court storm. Of course, the real floodgate burst open online. The incident became an easy excuse for critics to unleash venom, and Sophie, as usual, was caught in the crosshairs. The haters didn't waste a second. Almost immediately, vile comments began to surface, laced with ugliness that went far beyond basketball. They attacked her appearance, her popularity, even her very presence in the league. It wasn't about the game anymore. It was about tearing her down. Many pointed out a deeper undertone. Sophie isn't just a talented athlete. She's also someone who attracts attention, both positive and negative. Her confidence, her looks, her visibility, these qualities seem to stir resentment in some corners of the sports world. And instead of celebrating the Fever's victory, trolls and critics twisted the moment into yet another excuse to target her. To them, Sophie wasn't a player in a brace simply standing her ground. She was a lightning rod for jealousy and spite. The irony? All of this chaos unfolded in the shadow of a historic win. The Fever had fought tooth and nail, defying expectations and pushing themselves into the semifinals. Yet that triumph was nearly overshadowed by a security guard's odd attempt at theatrics and the online vitriol that followed. Sophie, who should have been enjoying the moment with her teammates, instead found herself battling narratives that had nothing to do with her game and everything to do with who she is off the court. And that leads us into what came next, because the online reaction didn't stop at cheap jokes or casual shade. What followed was darker, louder, and far more brutal. It wasn't just criticism anymore. It was vicious attacks on Sophie Cunningham. But what drives people to go this far? And why does Sophie's very presence provoke such extreme reactions? Stay glued to your screen because the answers might shock you. The online attacks targeting Sophie Cunningham. The moment Sophie Cunningham stepped onto the court, she wasn't just playing basketball, she was stepping into a storm. By now, the footage had gone viral, clips looping endlessly, fans replaying every second of that tense encounter with the overzealous security guard. But the fallout didn't end at the arena. Online, the reaction was immediate and merciless. Within minutes, social media became a battlefield, and Sophie found herself under a flood of vicious attacks from fans who seemed more interested in tearing her down than discussing the game. Comments exploded across platforms, ranging from casual digs to outright hate. Some of the nastiest posts came from familiar handles, accounts that had previously caused chaos during other player controversies. Fans dragged up past incidents, drawing parallels between Sophie and other high-profile players, comparing reactions and stirring grudges that had nothing to do with basketball. It wasn't just criticism, it was a coordinated frenzy of anger, envy, and in some cases, outright racism. Words flew, accusations piled up, and Sophie's very presence became a trigger for a crowd eager to vent. Some attacks targeted her personality, calling her entitled or trick ass for the way she handled the face-off with the guard. Others fixated on her popularity and physical appearance. Sophie, known for her striking looks and confident presence, seemed to attract an unusual level of scrutiny. Many of the online comments reflected a mixture of jealousy and resentment. Her popularity, measured in analytics, engagement, and fan searches, consistently ranked her among the league's most watched and discussed athletes, third in the entire WNBA, behind only Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. But while the numbers showed her influence, they also made her a target. The attacks weren't limited to the casual fan. Some individuals took things further, creating posts calling for Sophie to be doxxed or publicly shamed. Others attacked her teammates, her team, even her very right to be on the court. The vitriol was relentless. Many commenters seemed to revel in Sophie's leg injury, mocking the contraption that limited her movement and using it as a reason to question her authority and demeanor. Yet through it all, Sophie remained composed. She didn't lash out, she didn't retaliate online, and she certainly didn't let the chaos rattle her focus. Part of the firestorm stemmed from a perception that Sophie was somehow challenging norms. Standing her ground at mid-court, calmly facing a security guard who clearly intended to provoke her, some viewers interpreted it as arrogance or entitlement. The arguments online veered into absurdity. Some claimed she was intimidating, while others insisted she was showing off, standing up for herself in ways that made others uncomfortable. Mixed into these accusations were racial undertones and double standards, debates about how Sophie treated her black teammate, and even comparisons to hypothetical scenarios where race was reversed. Fans, analysts, and trolls alike tried to dissect every angle, often ignoring the obvious. Sophie was injured and simply asserting her personal space. Despite the online chaos, a surprising number of voices came to her defense. Many fans and commentators recognized the overreaction for what it was, a combination of jealousy, misperception, and misplaced anger. They highlighted that Sophie, far from being aggressive, had maintained composure, showing professionalism and courage under pressure. Yet even praise became part of the spectacle, drawing more attention and intensifying the cycle of commentary. It seemed the more people defended her, the more attacks escalated, creating a never-ending swirl of online confrontation. The social media storm painted a complicated picture of what it means to be a public figure in modern sports. Sophie Cunningham wasn't just an athlete executing plays, she had become a symbol, a focal point for both admiration and criticism. Her style, confidence, and visibility made her a high-profile player, but that same prominence attracted scrutiny from all corners. Fans weren't just responding to the on-court incident, they were reacting to Sophie's identity, her popularity, and the aura she carried as one of the league's most visible stars. At the heart of the frenzy was a paradox. Sophie's presence commanded attention, yet the attention was rarely neutral. Fans oscillated between fascination and animosity, admiration and envy. The intensity of the reaction underscored how online platforms amplify every action, turning a single incident into a spectacle of endless commentary. For Sophie, the challenge wasn't just the security guard or even the physical limitations of her injury. It was navigating a digital battlefield where every expression, stance, or decision was dissected and debated. And as the night wore on, one thing became clear. The story had only just begun. The attacks weren't slowing down, and social media chatter showed no signs of stopping. Sophie Cunningham, known for her strength and poise, faced an onslaught that went far beyond basketball, touching on personal identity, fan culture, and the sometimes toxic intersection of sports and online life. And as the backlash intensified, whispers began circulating about something much bigger: sacking the police officer. But why would that happen, and what does it mean for the league moving forward? Stay tuned to find out. Sophie Cunningham's powerful stand. The decision to sack a police officer during the Indiana Fever's recent game has sparked one of the loudest conversations the WNBA has seen in months. What seemed like an ordinary night of basketball soon spiraled into a heated debate about professionalism, respect, and the role of law enforcement at sporting events. The controversy wasn't about a foul, a referee's call, or even the final score. It was about an officer in uniform crossing a line no one expected. The shocking dismissal came after it was confirmed that the officer had directed offensive remarks at Sophie Cunningham, one of the Fever's standout stars. What made the incident worse wasn't just the words themselves, but who they came from. Fans could have brushed it off as the emotional outburst of an overzealous supporter, but discovering that it was a police officer, the very person meant to uphold order and protect players, left the arena in disbelief. Social media exploded almost instantly. The video of the incident spread like wildfire, drawing sharp criticism from fans, commentators, and even neutral observers who rarely weigh in on WNBA affairs. This wasn't just about basketball anymore. It became a conversation about integrity, accountability, and the power of public trust. For many, the question was simple. If an officer can publicly disrespect a player in full view of cameras, what does that say about the standards of the force off the court? The administration and WNBA authorities wasted no time addressing the matter. They launched an immediate investigation, and the findings were clear. The officer's words violated the core principles of professional conduct. It wasn't only about what was said, but the damage it caused. Such behavior not only endangered the atmosphere of the game, but also undermined the dignity of athletes who dedicate their lives to the sport. By moving swiftly, officials signaled that the WNBA would not tolerate any breach of respect, especially from those entrusted with authority. The firing sent shockwaves across both sports and law enforcement circles. Some praised the speed and firmness of the decision, saying it set a precedent that athletes, regardless of the sport they play, deserve complete respect and safety in their workplace. Others, however, argued that the dismissal was too severe, questioning whether a reprimand would have been enough. But for the Fever's loyal fan base, the move was necessary. Justice had been served, and the stain of disrespect had been addressed before it could spread further. Through all of this, Sophie Cunningham herself remained composed. Instead of adding fuel to the outrage, she chose grace over anger. Her words were measured but powerful. She reminded everyone that players enter the court to give their best and that maintaining a respectful environment is crucial, not just for performance, but for the spirit of the game. This calm response only elevated her in the eyes of fans, who admired her ability to handle such hostility with dignity. Her teammates and coaching staff were quick to rally around her, issuing strong statements about the values they stand for. Respect, dignity, and professionalism became the words that defined not just their team culture, but the wider conversation in the league. In a sense, this moment of controversy transformed into a rallying cry, not just for the Fever, but for the WNBA as a whole. It underlined the need to protect athletes, not just from injuries on the court, but from hostility and disrespect beyond it. Despite the noise surrounding the firing, the Indiana Fever did not let the scandal overshadow their success. Their victory that night was still celebrated with passion, marking another crucial step in their playoff journey. Yet, even in triumph, it was clear that the night would forever carry a dual legacy, one of victory and one of vigilance. For many fans and analysts, this was a turning point that reminded everyone why athletes' respect must always remain untouchable. And while the decision to dismiss the officer closed one chapter of the story, another was quietly beginning. Because beyond the controversy, what truly stood out was Sophie's ability to rise above it all, shaping the moment into something bigger than just a headline. Which brings us to Sophie's excellent legacy. How did she transform this moment of hostility into lasting respect? And what deeper mark is she leaving on the game? Keep watching, because the answer may surprise you. Turning hostility into lasting respect. When people talk about legacy in sports, it often circles back to numbers. Points scored, games won, or trophies lifted. But Sophie Cunningham's story isn't just measured by stats on a box score. Her impact is built on something deeper, something that reaches beyond the game itself. The way she stood tall in moments of hostility and transformed them into a powerful narrative of respect, fairness, and loyalty. And that's why, when fans look back at her journey, they don't just see a talented athlete. They see a leader who reshaped conversations within the WNBA. Sophie's defining moments came when she faced down disrespect, not with anger, but with composure. Whether it was dealing with a police officer's offensive remark during a Fever game or handling critics who doubted her teammates, she carried herself with a poise that turned hostility into admiration. She didn't lash out or let the negativity consume her. Instead, she chose to remind everyone that basketball is about respect. Respect for the game, for the players, and for the fans who support it. In doing so, she set a new standard for how athletes could respond to unfair treatment. Her influence became even more visible when she stood up for Caitlin Clark. While some analysts and fans tried to downplay Clark's significance to the league, Sophie boldly called those critics dumb for refusing to acknowledge her teammates' rising role as a face of the WNBA. It wasn't just about Clark, it was about fairness and recognition. Sophie used her voice to protect a teammate who was being targeted, showing that loyalty matters as much as skill in shaping a winning culture. That kind of outspoken defense resonated with fans, proving that Sophie wasn't just on the court to play, she was there to fight for what was right, and she didn't stop there. Beyond individual moments, Sophie became a powerful advocate for players' rights across the WNBA. When the "Pay us what you owe us" movement emerged, demanding fair compensation and better working conditions under the league's collective bargaining agreement, Sophie aligned herself with the cause. She knew that being a professional athlete wasn't only about entertainment, it was about dignity and equality. By using her platform to amplify those voices, she strengthened the push for systemic change and gave weight to a conversation that too often gets overlooked. At the same time, she wasn't afraid to call out inconsistencies in officiating. After games where players endured excessive physical play or questionable calls, Sophie openly criticized referees, sometimes bluntly, even mocking them for poor officiating. Some may have seen it as brash, but many recognized it as necessary. For Sophie, silence in the face of unfairness wasn't an option. She understood that pointing out flaws wasn't about disrespect, it was about accountability. Athletes deserve protection, and she made sure that truth didn't go unheard. What sets Sophie apart is that her words and actions always connect back to her values: grit, respect, and loyalty. She's not loud for the sake of being loud, and she doesn't chase controversy just to grab headlines. When she speaks, it comes from a place of conviction. She wants fairness for teammates, for opponents, and for the game itself. That sense of integrity makes her stand out, not just as a player, but as a role model for younger athletes watching her every move. Even when controversy swirled around her, Sophie didn't shrink back. She leaned in. She proved that leadership isn't about avoiding criticism. It's about embracing it and still standing firm in your truth. Fans admire her not just for her on-court hustle, but for her off-court courage. She has become a figure people listen to when debates about respect, pay equity, or officiating standards surface. Her voice carries weight because it's consistent. After all, it's real. What's most remarkable is how she has managed to turn negativity into a platform for something bigger. The insults, the dismissals, the unfair scrutiny, Each time, Sophie spun those challenges into lessons about resilience and respect. Instead of letting hostility break her down, she used it to build her legacy. She reminded the world that athletes are more than performers. They're people deserving of dignity, fairness, and recognition. And that's the deeper mark she's leaving on the game. It's not just about Sophie Cunningham the player, it's about Sophie Cunningham the advocate, the protector, the voice that doesn't back down when things get tough. She has shown that true greatness isn't only about how you score, but about how you stand. This drama around Sophie Cunningham is only getting louder, and the fallout is far from over. But do you think the guard really crossed the line? Or was Sophie unfairly targeted? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe.